Okay, so here we are at the section of road that needs help. We're going to spin you around and give you some detail on the situation. We just had a lot of rain last night that blew through, so we'll talk about that as well. So here's the road that I'm working on. The path of travel is actually right through the pools of water. Over there it looks okay, but that would become like that if that was used like this section here. So this actually used to look like that grassy area right there, and through use and running the tractor on it, that's what happens to it. So you know, there's some areas in there that might be a foot deep or so right now. The goal is the water's going to have to recede, probably take a couple weeks, and then I'll bring the tractor in and I'll build a trench that basically follows this line here, the width of the tractor a little bit wider, lay the tires in the bottom there, and then do like I described in putting the dirt in layers and then putting the road fabric and then another layer of dirt. So we can turn a road like this, which is nasty and you need a Jeep and four-wheel drive ATVs to go through, into the road like you see over there, where the limestone is already on the road, and that is not as the mud underneath that, the organic material is not as deep over there as this. This is a much bigger problem. So I'm working to resolve this so I can make it to that section, with this then takes me to the back, and I've got another road that I'm building up back there. So I'll shoot some video as this work gets done, and we'll do that in a separate video by itself. And we'll show you the tire installation and the tractor work and things like that. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe and like, and you know, we'll hit that alert button on there, and then you'll know when we launch the next video, which will show the actual work that I'm going to be doing to go from muddy, sloppy mess to nice, solid dirt road. What you see right here is I'm removing the black mud and starting to get down to the sand, and to do that I'm using the box blade, just backing up, dropping it, digging it in, and then dragging the muck away. You know, the goal here is to create a single lane that is, you know, can be flooded and driven on even when it's wet, possibly even getting above the water line, because this whole area will get 6 inches of water in it during the wet season. So I've kind of split it into two areas, so I'm having to manage some water from a rain. So I dug a ditch to help that water drain off the area that I'm trying to work on. And then right now, I'm working over in this direction and scraping that out. And let's go over here so you can see what we're getting is the lighter colored sand, which is exactly what I want. Now what I need to do is I'm going to work back over here, because I put a mound in between the two sections so I don't have a lot of water pushing into that. I can see that I'm about to have water come in from over there, so I probably need to just take a bucket and, you know, dig it out real quick. But then this is getting pretty darn close to being what I want. So once I get this done, what I'll do is I'll get the sidewalls of the tires that have been cut out, and I'll lay those down in this section, and then I'll get the tires and I'll put them in a back and forth pattern in that area, and then I'll use the gravel, which is over there, and then fill those tires up. And I'll use the stuff with the big stone in it first, and the third pile has less of the bigger rock, because it doesn't, you know, I want something smoother on the top. So once I get this section done, then I'll turn around and focus back on this section, which you can see still has a lot of muck in it. So what I'm doing is trying to drag it in the right direction so I can manage the number of trips that I'm doing, the distance that I'm traveling, the time that it takes to move things around, because every time you drive, then that gets worse, and also it just takes fuel and time. So I'm gonna stay focused on this section here. We'll watch this, you can see what I'm doing, and probably widen it just a little bit. So right now, unfortunately, I've got a class 1 box blade on a class 2 tractor, and it's a little bit narrow, so it's a 6 foot. I probably use a 7 or an 8 foot, so I'm gonna have to scrape this side again to widen it just a little bit to make it wide enough. So when you do the tires, you don't want to have the tires right up against the muck, right? Because then the muck will move and the tires will move with the muck. So you want to get it down where you can have dirt, you know, the dirt from the pile on either side, and then you want space in between the tires where the dirt's going to pack in between, and it kind of, you know, builds a situation where it's going to be holding itself in place since I'm not actually connecting the tires. If you want to go crazy, you can try to connect the tires. I've done it with zip ties, and it's like 6 or 8 zip ties per tire. It's too much work, and just don't have the time or the patience to go through that. So I'm gonna start widening this just a little bit, keep this ground over here on the right, because that's a little bit better ground, a little bit more solid ground. Work with the muck on that side, and then put some half tires in. So let's go. So what I'm doing is just removing some dirt to encourage the water to flow away from the road as I'm working on the road. I don't want it to move in. Once it's on the road, it just creates mud. You can see how my tires are spinning and how soft it is. At this point, it's hard to get traction if you push the bucket into the muck. But this is a necessary step. 3 points of contact. All right, so I'm actually going to start on this side. This side over here, I think is ready. Good sand in the bottom, no water, about 18 inches deep. Gives me some room over top of the tires. So now I'm going to start scraping that out and pulling it up there. Make a pile of muck, and I'll come back some other time, some other video, and just move the muck out of the way. So I've got a nice straight, more level runway here, or road base, without the muck on top of it. So I'm going to hit that real quick.
I didn't have enough limestone, so I had to have some brought in. It ran about $125 for 7 yards.
Alrighty. So this is what we're going to put down after we excavate the mud. Put the tires in. Then I'm going to backfill over the tires with this stuff. Hopefully get the rock down in there. Probably have to leave it exposed for a while. Maybe get a couple rains on it. Help it wash in between the tires, but these big rocks will fit in between those tires well. And then over time, they'll crush and break down into the fine stuff that we see in the pile already. He's going to bring me something with a little bit finer material, not quite as many big rocks, so I can put a layer of that over the top, which would be good. Want to do is create voids under the tires as much as possible. If you put them up, then you have that risk of creating a void. So you can kind of do a section and then do the math on figuring out how many tires you're going to need for the road that you're building. Some areas you may just use the sidewalls that are cut out, like where it gets shallow. I'll just use sidewalls. Where it's deep like this, I'm actually going to use sidewalls and the actual rest of the tire. Tires on the outer edge are more important than the ones in the middle. If you think about it, where you're constantly putting pressure, it's on the outside. So if you got some real crappy tires, just throw those in the middle and use the ones that have a wide sidewall on the outside. It gives you a better footprint, better resistance to movement. Got 75 tires and sidewalls, and I'm guessing I'm going to need twice that, maybe 3 times that. All right, that's it. That's all the sidewalls I have. So now putting some dirt on it from the pile, and then very light coat of dirt. What I don't want to do is build it back up without getting the tires on there, because the tires are that tall, and I've got to be able to get dirt on top of that. And it's okay if I go above grade here, because this all floods. So let's move some dirt on top here and see how it goes. Okay, so you can see how the roadbed is starting to take shape. I've actually driven on this a little bit. It's still unstable. I do have road fabric, which I was thinking about trying to figure out how to use. And I may use that in certain select areas where the soil is a little bit more stable. I do have a limited amount of fill dirt. So the plan now is to start laying the tires down and then start filling them in. So get started on that. The guy that came up with this is the one that said leave a little space in between them so you can get dirt in there so it'll pack tight. So they don't have to be perfect. And I'm leaving a little bit of gap in there. Look how I'm doing.
Dry fill dirt in this situation and then dump it straight down, it'll tend to go in between the tires better and flow into the voids inside the tires themselves better. So if you have wet fill dirt, I probably would wait until it dries out. We'll come up with a slightly different plan to make sure that it goes into those voids around the tires.
All right, I'm running out of daylight. I got the prep done, got the tires here. Gonna lay them out and then have to call it a day. The sun's going down. I probably only have about 20 minutes of daylight left, so try to bang this out, at least get the tires in, maybe get a layer of dirt on it. Call it a day, and we'll see you next time. Alright, so you can see we've got a lot of dirt we're moving now. The excavator moved a lot of dirt from the berm around the pond, and what I'm doing now is moving that dirt from the pond to the side of the road for two reasons. One is it'll help prevent the good road that we constructed from gushing out to the sides when it gets wet. Number two is by increasing the elevation around the road, it's going to stay drier through that entire area. That area seems to drain right into there, so it will stay drier, which means obviously it's going to hold up longer. And you can see from the video we have an absolute ton of dirt to utilize at this point, so we're taking advantage of all of it in that way. And then you know, the best stuff we're trying to hold off and use for the back road section to drop down in and around the tires. So that's what you're looking at. So I hope this is helping you understand the process. And there we go. What I'll eventually do, once I've got the dirt moved, is hire my skid steer guy to come back in and let him track it in and shape it. It's really easy for him to do the shaping, and he's quite good. So it's something to turn over to somebody else. I'm doing the bulk work here and taking care of what he would have to be doing. So instead of paying him to shuttle dirt, I'm shuttling the dirt, and I'll let him do the road construction and the final smoothing and distribution of the piles that I'm creating. But that'll maximize my dollars and his time when he comes out here to do the rest. And should, you know, definitely be able to get this dirt staged for him today. And then I'm going to start putting more dirt onto the back road. We've got some tires down, and I'm going to start filling some of that in with the best dirt that we have, and then putting a layer on top of that with you know, the limestone, and then possibly other dirt to go along with that. So hopefully it'll wash in over time. We're in the dry season right now, so it's a really good time to be doing this work. This simply couldn't be done at some other time of the year. It's just it's too wet, and you're dealing with a swamp, so you know how that goes. You gotta work when the weather's gonna let you. And we've got a few months now of dry season, so it's really just the ideal time to be banging this stuff out. And this is the type of work that I enjoy. So that's what we're up to today. We spin you around, you can kind of look at what we have in front of us. You can see that area out there is all low, and that's what I'm starting to fill in, and then putting rock or dirt and such along the side of the road. As you can see there, you can see the elevation difference between that up there and this down here, where I'm starting to pack it in to drop it off, and that will make this road 100% a four-season road in what was before an area that would actually get the tractor stuck if I pushed my luck and drove in there. So that's what we're up to. We've made a lot of really good progress, and there's a reason that we made good progress. And, you can see this here, the road itself now is about 10 inches to a foot above the surrounding grade, which is excellent. In the last time I was out here, it was actually below grade. So water was moving into it, and now since it's been drying out, and then it got built up. But what I wanted to point out was that I made the decision to hire somebody with a skid steer, and what I was finding with the tractor, just the tire pressure was pretty extreme, and I was rutting it quite extensively, as I was moving around the soft dirt. And the skid steer, and the young man that did it just did a wonderful job. He was able to get dirt that I had excavated from the pond area. I just needed more dirt, and I didn't want to bring it in by the truck, so I hired an excavator to remove it from around the pond area, and then hired the skid steer to come in and do this. So this all has the tire, half tire base underneath it. It has a layer of dirt, which is like limestone rock, and then I have a road fabric on top of that, and then on top of that I have another layer of limestone rock. So this road is exactly what you would want to see in a road that's being built in a very mucky, marshy area. So I'm going to fill in more of the less than good material on the sides. What I'm trying to do is create pressure against the road, so over time the road doesn't squish out. And by planting, basically what I'm going to do is basically plant a feed plot, a food plot on either side of this road, because it's really good, mucky, wet soil. Should grow, clover or something quite well. But then, I can make a couple passes over it at different times of the year in the tractor, as long as I'm not using the same area, or when it gets really wet, I just avoid it altogether. It'll hold up pretty well. So that's the plan to get started today and tomorrow. But this section of road looks great. Next thing we're going to do is basically repeat that process in the back, where the road is under, somewhere between, 6 and 18 inches of water during the real wet season. So we want to solve that problem permanently, and we'll be good to go. So hopefully you've learned something. If you did, hit the like button, share. This is the type of information that homesteaders can really use, especially in Florida and other swampy areas, to be able to access parts of their property that you think it's too difficult, or you've got to go four-wheeling every time that you want to go do something. This makes it a lot more enjoyable to have a good road, and it's a one-time investment, and this road is a permanent road now. It will never go back to the way it was unless it sits for 20 years without any level of maintenance. So hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one.